Here we go, guys. We've got another coffee with Coach Patrick. Today I'm joined by Canadian national team member Tristan Cote. Good morning, Tristan. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
No, it's a real delight to have you kind of come on and talk. I know we chatted a couple weeks ago, or I talked to Rob Hill about seeing if you'd be interested in doing this and coming on. And I think you got a really cool and fascinating story with your career. And I just kind of want to walk through your career and where you started in the sport, how you've come through and where you are now. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. Pretty simple
Sure.
stuff.
For sure. Sounds good. Look forward to it.
Excellent. So the way I want to start, man, is just first I want to check and see, like, with the whole COVID-19, everything that's going on, how are you doing? How's your family doing? Are you in Calgary, back home in Ontario? Like, where are you right now, and how's your family doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Family's doing good. I'm still in Calgary. I decided that it's probably better that I just stay out here and get on the training schedule that everybody's doing in my group. And the whole family's back home in Toronto, kind of in self-isolation and self-quarantine. But they're all, still have the opportunity to work and just take care of themselves from home. So everybody's doing good.
Good, excellent. So you're in Calgary. Are you living with some roommates, some teammates? What's your setup there in Calgary?
Yep. Yeah, I live with two teammates, two roommates, Peter Brothers and Anders Klein, which is good. I guess we're together all the time, go to practice, and then we kind of live together. So it's a good household. I like it.
Excellent. So you're saying go to practice. Are you guys able to get in the water, or is it just finding other alternatives for training right now?
No, yeah. So we're not in the water right now. We're doing 7 land workouts a week, 3 that are more of an aerobic based hour activity, and then there's 4 that are power weight training based.
Okay. So you guys have a setup at home with some weights and stuff, or do you have somewhere you can go and access?
Yeah, we have a few things at home like med balls and dumbbells and backpacks full of weights and things like that. So I mean, we're making the best out of it. It's not the most ideal gym, but again, we're making the best out of what we got, and it's been great so far.
It must be a little bit nice to have a couple of teammates, and with Pete and Anders, like, they're both really good swimmers, high level guys, committed guys. So that at least gives you a support group of at least the 3 of you guys, right? It must be pretty nice.
Yep. The 3 of us are very competitive too, so it's nice to know that we're all kind of in the same boat, mentally and with swimming. That's always something great. You're not kind of coming home to maybe a roommate that doesn't really understand the sport, doesn't understand the early mornings, doesn't understand that sometimes you are tired, and it's nice to just relax. And so we're all in that same boat, and we all kind of get it. And then even more so, we mostly do a lot of the same workouts. Me and Peter will do some distance things together, and Anders will do some backstroke stuff when I do IM. So we kind of know what we're all going through, and it really helps at the end of the day, to understand that, again, like, we might be tired that day, and everybody is. Chances are, if I'm tired, they're both tired, and we're kind of just hanging out. So it's good.
Well, and it kind of enforces that point that although it's an individual sport, you need to have your teammates and your support system around you, right? It's not something you can just do by yourself.
Definitely. And that's really something that I learned in the last couple of years being at university. I think coming in, I definitely thought swimming was a very individual sport. But especially in university, when you go to those competitions like Can West and CIs or U Sports, um, it's very team based. You do everything for the team. Especially myself, I swam events strictly for the team. It wasn't necessarily my best event, and really you do whatever you can to help each other out. So a support system that extends from the pool to home is always great. At the pool we have our coach, and that's something that's been really good over the years. But even bringing that home, bringing that an extra step further, really helps a lot.
It's funny, like, I talk about this a lot, and it's something that I realized years ago in my career. It's, as coaches, we can motivate, we can support, we can mentor, we can be all these pieces to our athletes, but at the end of the day, we're not in the water, we're not doing the work. Like, we can empathize, we're writing and all that, but when you have somebody beside you or somebody who lives with you, who does the work, who knows exactly what you're going through, it's just different, right?
It is, yeah, for sure. They just understand a different side of it, and so that's great.
Excellent. Well, and I imagine you got a lot of different teammates, because as a guy who swims the 400 IM, you train everything, right? So you might have like different teammates based on the day or what stroke you're focused on or what type of work you're doing, right? So you're like a Swiss Army knife of swimming.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be at least, especially the 400. I kind of have to hit the distance too, with a little bit of speed work, and then along the way getting all the strokes in. So I definitely bounce between groups, or people are bouncing between the IM group. And what I really like is, I mentioned it already, I'm a really competitive guy. So even though I'm not like the greatest flyer or the greatest backstroker, when a flyer comes into the set or a backstroker comes into the set, I really try and take that opportunity to try and beat them, at their game, right? So I like how that works out. And then obviously in our group we have great IMers all around. So we hit kind of everything. We've kind of built a good group here where, I mean, just speaking for myself, it's good to train all around. I like it a lot.
Absolutely. And it's funny, when I did my talk with Rob Hill, he had mentioned the same. One of the things we talked about is that Rob swam at China, then he swam at the Center in Victoria, and then he swam in Calgary. And it's like he's been really fortunate in his career that he's had a great group to train with in every venue that he's trained in. So, I mean, that's something that you guys have in Calgary. You have a really great group of guys. You've got a good dynamic, a good team. And that must have played a role into some of the success you've had over the university years, for sure.
100%. I mean, and I think that's kind of, well, it's the main reason why I chose to come to Calgary in the first place. But like Rob, I grew up with Etobicoke for 7 or 8 years, and I mean, those friends are still some of my best friends in the world, right? We had a really, really good group there, and so when I was making a decision to come to university, that was a key aspect of what I wanted. I wanted, first of all, a good group of friends, and then a good group of athletes who are looking to train hard, and really push each other. And like Rob wasn't here when I came, but there were some other guys, and when those guys left, I knew Rob was looking for a change, and reached out and really tried to bring a good group around us, who wants to succeed and who wants to push each other, and who really has goals and aspirations that are maybe dreams to some people, but with a good group around you, you can achieve those. So that's kind of why I like it here. But yeah.
All right. So it's really fascinating to hear you talk about teammates and stuff, because that seems to be a theme when I talk to athletes. They really kind of refer to their teammates and the groups that they've trained with. And you mentioned swimming with the Etobicoke for all those years and having a really great group there, transitioning your group in Calgary. That group kind of shifted a bit with some swimmers graduating, moving on, some swimmers coming in. So it really makes me think, like, for a guy like you and I'm just going to run through some of your career highlights, and I'm going to miss some, but you've had quite the career. Like, as a young guy, you came up and you had a lot of success and you went through. So I don't usually do this, but I've got a list here, because usually it's athletes that I know extremely well. But 2008, 2010, 2012, you were at the North American Challenge Cup. So it was Edmonton, California, Edmonton. You took part in Canada Games 2013 in Sherbrooke for Ontario. 2013 Junior World Championships in Dubai. Then you had the 2014 Junior Pan Pacs in Maui. The 2014, you were the male CIS Rookie of the Year. And I think 2014, you were male athlete of the year in Etobicoke. 14, you went to FISU Games in Gwangju. You also were male athlete of the year at eSwim. You were nominated for male athlete of the year at University of Calgary. 2016 Short Course World Championships in Windsor. Once again, nominated for male athlete of the year in Calgary. 2017 the World Championships that were in Budapest. You went to FISU Games again, this time in Chinese Taipei. 2018 Commonwealth Games. 2018 Pan Pacs in Tokyo. And then the World Championships last year in Gwangju again. So the reason why I wanted to list that all is that going back to when you were a young kid, you were on the national team, whether it be a North American Challenge Cup team, then you did the junior teams, Junior Pan Pacs, Junior Worlds. And then you've done basically every senior team that you can possibly do, with the exception of the Olympics, which the games are coming up this year.
Missing that one.
Missing that one. So that one's the one to kind of complete the set, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's really phenomenal in the run that you've been on. So you've come up as a young guy who's really good. So I want to go all the way back to the beginning. And I actually want to ask you, is like, how did you get your start in swimming? Because what fascinates me about you is, like, although I've never coached you, I have been around you quite a bit. You're friends and with a lot of guys that I've coached. We were on the junior Pan-Pac team in 2014 together. But I met you for the first time. I don't know. My wife was asking, do you think you'll remember this? But I met you for the first time in 2004. You were a 9-year-old kid swimming with Mississauga Aquatic Club.
Yeah.
And I was in school, but deciding that I wanted to go full time into coaching. So I was looking, I talked to Mike Rutledge at the time. I said, hey, Mike, do you have any jobs?
Yeah.
So I was coaching a couple of little kind of high schoolish type fitness groups, but I was helping out Derek McGregor, I think is his name.
Yep.
And you were in the group. So I remember meeting you and your sister that year, way back when.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. But it goes even further back than that for you, right? So I know I got going a bit, but where did you get your start in swimming? What got you into it, and where did you start swimming originally? Where was your first point of swimming?
So I moved to the States when I was just over a year old, and swimming's a big sport in Arizona. That's where I moved. And so my sister's 4.5 years older than me, and she joined the club, Scottsdale Aquatic Club.
Okay.
And I was always kind of around the pool, going to swim meets, going and watching her practices when she was swimming. My mom just kind of brought me. It was just natural for me to go, right? So I've been told, I don't really remember, but I've been told I wanted to swim since I was like 2 or 3. I just wanted to be part of the guys that swam at Scottsdale. And so when I turned 5, they kind of allowed me finally to join the club competitively. And I got to, practice. I got to train, I guess, and then compete with other people. So that's kind of how it started. 5 years old, just trying to do a 25 free as fast as I can against the other 5, 6, 7-year-olds. And then it just grew from there. So I moved to Mississauga when I was 7. I was there for 2 years. So when I was 9 was actually when I made the transition to Etobicoke. So I probably met you
When you were 8 then.
8 or 9. So so just I probably met you right before I was going to Etobicoke.
Yeah.
And so naturally for I think for my parents it was clearly this is a sport that Tristan really likes. My sister was still swimming, and she was really good when she was young. And so I think they just wanted, where can we go where if he really wants to commit and obviously I'm 8 or 9 years old. I'm really just having fun at that time. Mm-hmm. But for the future, if I really like the sport and I want to stick with it, where can I go that will give me the best chance to do well? And at the time, and I think still now, Etobicoke was the best option for me. And so we made that switch over. And like you said, I had a good amount of success early on. And I think that's a major motivating factor. Obviously it's great to, go best time, or train hard or hang out with your friends at the pool. Like that's all really good stuff. But I remember getting notified that I had made the North American Challenge Cup in Edmonton when I was 12. Like I still remember that moment, and I didn't really know what it was. But all my friends that I competed with were like a year or 2 older. And so it was more, I guess, relevant or important for them. And they were really hyped for me. And I was 12. Like I didn't really know what it was. I was, just cool. I made a Canadian, junior national team. And I was just excited to wear the leaf and then go compete against people from California, US, and Mexico. And that was my first kind of taste of international swimming, and it went really well. And so I kind of got hooked on that. I kind of got hooked on, being on a team, striving for a goal like that, and then once there, performing well, because it doesn't always happen where you make a team and then you swim well. I've definitely had my fair share of being on a national team and then swimming poorly. And that's kind of, part of the mental game and learning how to deal with that kind of pressure and, all that kind of stuff. So, early it was good. It was really, really fun. That team was really fun. You get all the gear. It's super exciting. And then when I was 13, I wanted to make it again, but it was a 13, 14-year-old category. So I missed it when I was 13 and then made it when I was 14 and so on and so on. So I really got hooked on that. Making Canadian national teams is the funnest part, of the sport. You get to travel, you get to, be with some of the best athletes in Canada in your sport, and compete. And I love to compete. So what's not fun about that?
Absolutely. Well, you touched on a few things. So you kind of sparked a few questions because I'm really fascinated about your story and your journey. The first thing is when you said you love to travel, like you've managed, do you keep track of how many countries you've visited because of swimming? Do you know that number offhand? Like some people do it, some people don't.
I don't know. I got asked the question yesterday, and I don't know off the top of my head, but going through the countries, just like listing them in my head, it's amazing. It's really like a sport that brings you around the world, and not many sports do that. And so in that fact, we're really fortunate.
Absolutely. And the other question I wanted to have was going back to you as a youngster, right? Now at that time and having the success you were having and being at the level you were at, did you feel pressure at all? Or was it just, I'm young, I'm having fun, I'm racing, I'm getting on these teams, and you don't feel the pressure? Because, I mean, I remember as a coach back then, there was the comparisons that you would come up, right? I always hear about the comparisons. This kid's going to be better than Tobias Orwell, right? Have you heard that one much?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
With Etobicoke, he had a bunch of the records, so
Yeah.
I was always trying to beat his times. Yeah.
Yeah. So how was it? Did you feel the pressure, or were you just a kid having fun, loving racing?
Pressure's funny because I think it as a young kid, I didn't have a whole lot of external pressure from my parents or my coaches. I mean, coaches a little bit, but that's just because they saw me train. They knew what I was capable of. But and my friends didn't know too much about swimming. Not a whole lot of people do outside the sport. So the only pressure I had young was, and I wouldn't even say it's pressure. It's more just expectation that I had on myself. I was really, I don't know if a lot of 10-year-olds do it, but I used to write down all my times. Like, so I would, have a best time, and just write down every split for the 50, the 100. Let's say I'm doing a 4 free, 50, every 50.
Mm-hmm.
And I would kind of read them and go over them. And I would go to a meet and I would hit those times to the 10th, like almost to the 10th every single time. And so for me, it was just expectation. And I kind of knew what I was capable of at a young age. And I used to do that all the time. Like my parents tell me that it's like the weirdest, it's really weird how accurate I was. And just speaking on pressure, I think so. It starts low, and then as I grew older, it became much more. So I would say at like 15, 16, 17, I felt more pressure on myself, more, not too much pressure from my parents, but they kind of were, they knew how bad I wanted to do well. And so in a sense, there's pressure there as well. And then coaches, again, there's pressure there. So at 15, 16, 17, there was a lot of pressure. And then growing older, 20, 21, 22, as I got to be on these teams, I realized that pressure will kill my dreams, and it will, not let me perform at the level that I want to perform at. And so it's kind of gone down again. So it's kind of been like a bell curve. And kind of just managing that. And I think for every athlete, there gets to a point where pressure is heightened, and then you either realize that it's your downfall, or you learn how to manage it and move past it. So at a young age, not too much. And right now, not a whole lot either.
Well, it's funny. Like one thing you touched on there, and this is so I'm much the same way. I write everything down. I think every good performance you can figure out a math equation, and then you just figure out how to hit those splits, right? So, like when you're describing that, I was like, yeah, I'm right there with you. I was that kind of strange 10-year-old kid too that did that, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that I found fascinating, you said you struggled a little bit with pressure between 15, 16, 17, and that's what I've noticed. For female athletes, I see that happen quite a bit, 13 to 16 or 12 to 15 in that range. But for guys, it's kind of that 15 to 18 range. Like all of a sudden, there's that bit of a stress, a pressure, whatever it comes in. It's interesting you mentioned that. Have you noticed that with some of other teammates or people you've talked to that was kind of rough for years as you're figuring out who you are? Or
yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into it. As a guy, you're starting to develop more. And for myself, sorry, one second. I'm just gonna open this door. I have a little kitten who's freaking out.
okay, no, you're good.
I don't know if you can hear it in the background. So
no, it's all right.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear my wife. My daughter's napping, and my wife just went in because she started screaming her face off.
So yeah, I think at 15, 16, 17, 18 years old for guys, we oh, he's gonna come up here.
That's fine. That's all good.
We start to develop more, and as somebody who really kind of looked at records from my club and national records at that age, there are some big boys, 17 years old. Some guys in the history of the sport and swimming are men, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the pressure comes from my expectation, and I didn't develop early whatsoever. So me trying to get to those times was, I had pressure on myself, and so for a guy at that age who's finishing high school, going into university, there's a lot of pressure around that. Picking the right school, also just naturally developing. Your body's changing. You're going through different things. Even outside of swimming, you're, I don't know, like thinking about girls or whatever reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything's just changing around those times. So it becomes difficult to manage everything in your life, it feels like. And I guess you just have to learn how to either cope with it, deal with it, or, use it to your advantage. And like you said, like, yeah, girls it's a little bit younger age, but I think it's something similar where things are just changing in your life that there's a little bit more pressure, and you kind of feel it a little bit more.
And I've kind of noticed too, like the pressure that you're feeling, it's sometimes harder to process it because your brain isn't really developed. You're not mature enough to be able to process things in sometimes the most logical manner, right?
Yeah, for sure. And also it tends to be the start of you having to deal with that kind of pressure. And at that age, I think you kind of know whether you're on track of, being really good in the sport. That's not always for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of 15, 16-year-olds are typically pretty good when they're 20. And, sometimes they fall off. Sometimes people peak at 25 or whatever it is. But, for a general fact, right? And then at that point, you're kind of deciding whether you want to kind of be in the sport still, right? You're going to school. So I think it's just you're managing something more heightened. You're kind of more aware of it. But yeah.
No, absolutely. No, and I think it's an important piece. And this is the type of stuff I like talking about because I think there's somewhere out there's a 15-year-old kid who's pretty good, who is or a 16-year-old kid who's pretty good, and they're going to be feeling the same things that you felt or somebody else felt. Like there's so many different pathways and journeys in the sport. And that's really what I love about talking to all these different athletes is that although it's a pretty good idea and you can see on track, it's still a bit of a different journey for each person, right?
And also what I wanted to say, I forgot to say it, is that it's the start of that pressure being more heightened, and you can do a few things. You can talk to a professional, right, who we'll teach you about, managing your training and your diet and all that kind of stuff. And at that age, I talked to a sports psych only a few times, but I didn't really do it a whole lot, and I wish I did. And I really learned the importance of it in university later on, and being able to take that next step. And I think I would have been able to take it sooner if I followed through and I listened to my mom and was, actually going to go and listen to somebody who tells me how I feel, right? But at that age, you're kind of like, you don't know how I feel.
Yeah.
You don't know me, right? So,
Yeah.
it's growing up, really, at the end of the day.
It's absolutely correct, and I think your mom's gonna love that part. No, it's funny because I always jokingly say I tell my young swimmers, especially the males, because I can relate to it being a young male, is that at some point between 20 and 24, you're gonna call your mom and you're just gonna say, "I'm sorry," and she's just like, "What for?" It's like, all the times I didn't listen, or all the times I thought I knew better, or all the times all that stuff.
Yeah, should have listened for sure.
Should have listened. There you go. See, I think that's really good advice though, about the sports psych, because I think a lot of young people think that if I talk to a sports psychologist, it means something's wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just being able to process the pressures that most 16-year-old kids are not going through, right?
Yeah, I think I thought the same way. I think I thought that, for whatever reason, I maybe had like a down year or something, and my mom was like, "Well, let's go to this person. They can tell you what's going on, at least mentally." And at that age, you tend to be stubborn. So I'm like, "Well, what do you mean mentally? I don't have anything wrong mentally, and I'm good to go. All this stuff." So, I wish I listened a little bit sooner.
Yeah. So that would be your advice to somebody younger, is like, listen to somebody if they're giving you that advice.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
I learned that when I was like 18, 19, when I came to school. Somebody told me, Bogdan Knezevic told me, I don't know if you know him, but
I know Bogdan. Yeah.
okay. So I came in, and like the third or fourth day, we're starting our weight program. And the first real piece of advice he gave me coming into university was just, commit to what they have you doing.
Mm-hmm.
He said, with his weight program, he didn't commit a whole lot at the very start. And he kind of regretted it. And so that's kind of just what I did. Like, especially Mike's been around for such a long time that, anything I'm feeling, chances are a swimmer in the past has felt that way. And so I kind of just, more than I do. I'm really just doing the sport. I'm just swimming, but you kind of know everything else. And so I'm going to listen to you, really.
Absolutely. So on the note of coaches, you've had some really good ones in your career. So I do want to pass on my condolences to you and to everyone who's been around and worked with Kevin Thorburn, on his passing. He's one of the greatest coaches in our country. But even more so, having the opportunity to spend about 3.5 weeks with him at Junior Pan Packs, I really got to know him, and he had a real big impact on me in 3.5 weeks, where he just taught me so much we talked so much about vinyl and about music and about life. And I think there's that side of Kevin that a lot of people didn't know. So coming up through the Etobicoke system and the program, I mean, you spent a lot of time with Kevin. So I'd like to kind of hear your thoughts of Kevin as a coach, as a person working with him, the impact he had on you and your career, whatever you're comfortable sharing with us.
For sure. Any questions you have, I'm willing to answer. So first of all, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. He was a really good guy. He was really, driven. He knew what he wanted. And he knew how, at least for me, he knew how to get the best out of me. But I've written something on Instagram and kind of put it out there. But I think the greatest thing, well, he did a few things, but he taught me how to work hard. And that could be something internal, but he taught me that working hard isn't just a one-day thing. It's not a one practice thing if you have it 2 in a day. There were so many times where I would show up to a morning workout and complete it and think I'm not going to be able to do this night workout. Like I'm dead. And then go in and then do really well. So he kind of knew how to make an impossible set possible and give you that confidence moving forward. Another thing that he did was he recorded everything. And I mean, you can go back. When I swam with university, I would go back for Christmas for a few days before we went on training camp. And I mean, we would talk for a good amount of time about, oh, do you remember this set when you were 15? We did like 3100's best average. And for me, I remember all those things. So I'd be like, oh, yeah, like I know what I held. And then he'd be like, oh, yeah, you think that's what you went? And then he'd pull out his book and it'd have the date and it'd have the set and it'd be that. And then he'd have Ali Abdul-Khalik's times and he'd have Brittany McLean's times and he would have everybody's. So he kept that record. And more importantly, he kept the record that came before me. So I knew what Bogdan Gnezovic was going and I knew what Hassan Abdul-Khalik was going. And those guys I really looked up to growing up. Like those guys had a lot of national records. So that was really cool. And I know we talked about it at the start of this call where swimming it's really a team sport. And it's your immediate team and also the team that was before you. And so with the record of what those guys were going in every set that we did, that's my team and I want to beat my team and I want to do better than everybody else. And but keeping that record, I think, heightened the level of competition and heightened the level of training. And so that was really cool too. And kind of just in the last few days going over, everything that I kind of learned, I always thought it was kind of weird that, you do a practice and then you'd go write what your average was on the board and, where you kind of fell off or whatever it was. But I'm grateful that he did that. Mm-hmm. It kind of taught me that, keep track of what you're doing. And statistics kind of do matter, especially in a sport where hundredths of a second matter a lot. That kind of stuff is really important to me now. But one thing I want to touch on is that he built a really good culture in Etobicoke. I mentioned it at the start of the call that some of my best friends are from when I was 10, 11, 12, and we swam all the way till we were 17. And I don't live in the same city as them, but I talk to them every day. And swimming is a good sport that, develops that. But even more so at Etobicoke, like, we would do stuff all the time. And that friendship, that bond kind of extended to our parents and our grandparents. Like they all know each other as well. And nice. we still get together, at Christmas or whatever it is. And we have a Christmas party and the athletes are invited, or I guess the friends are invited, the parents are invited, and everybody comes together if you can. And so in that respect, he created a family of hundreds and hundreds of people that came along the way. Even one of the coaches there, Andy Bobby, he swam way before me. Like he was in his last couple years of university when I was like 13 or 14 in the group, or maybe 15. And, when I heard, obviously I have a connection with him because he's a coach, but, I called him right away and I wanted to see how he was doing, even though we're not, necessarily friends. We didn't grow up together. We're part of Etobicoke and Etobicoke is really a family. So, it goes, miles and cities and countries long. We're really a family. And I think that has a good part to do with, why I've been in the sport for so long. I didn't want to leave that.
I think that's fantastic. It's interesting you mentioned Andy, and it's funny. I met him a couple of years ago at my buddy's wedding, and it's just that swimming community it's a small community. I flew back to Ontario and I met him, and he's a great guy. Kind of listening to your story and hearing it, it seems like what Kevin did at Etobicoke with his athletes and with the groups and the club culture and setting it up over time it was more than just coaching. There was a connection. There was a connection to people on a human level. And you always talked about confidence or get up in racing or the guys that came before you, but how much did you feel empowered as an athlete because you had Kevin behind you saying, you've done the work, I've trained you, you're ready for this, or, how much of a calming or confidence building influence did he have on you and your teammates when you guys were training and working and racing?
Yeah, he had a good ability to, before a race, everybody goes to their coach and they're like, what am I going to do? Hopefully you kind of know before you go, but there were so many times where I would go to him before any race and he would just be like, well, what are you going to do? And I would say all these things, blah, 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 blah. And then he would really simplify it and just compress it into a few key things, because all those little things I knew I had to do and I was going to do them. There's no point of, just rambling through them while you're racing. And so he had a good sense of just focus on these couple of things that we've been working on in practice. To add to that, I mean, he used to name his sets, like a really big set on a Saturday. So there's like King Kong and there's the Flying Wedge and like Godzilla. There's so many sets that you look at the board and you're like, I can't do that. There's no way. It's like a 3-hour workout and we're going 12.5K. Is that for real? And you just don't stop for 3 hours. And so knowing that I've completed those sets, it's like some of the hardest stuff I've ever done. And just knowing the fact that I was able to do that brought the confidence into the racing. And of course he kept a record. So if you didn't complete, let's say the Flying Wedge is a 12.5K set, we did it more than once in the year. So you had opportunity to try and get back at it.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew if you didn't complete it, and chances are the next time we did it, the pace time was going to be a little bit quicker. So you really had to be on your A game the next day. And even building off of that, he would tell us on like Friday. And I honestly think it's to try and scare us into the set to see how we can deal with our nerves. Mm-hmm. He would tell us on Friday night, get ready for tomorrow. And we're like, what do you mean? And he would be like, well, just get ready. It's going to be a big one. Or I'll tell you the name of the set. And then we're like, overnight, we're like, oh my God, like, what can that be? What can King Kong possibly be, right? And then you show up and you're like, no way, this is impossible. And then I really learned how to deal with my nerves, because at a certain point, it's like, what's the worst thing that he could throw at me? I've completed all these different things. How bad can it really be? At the end of the day, it's just swimming. And I can probably do good for 2.5 hours. Like, how hard can it be, right? And so, yeah, he had a good sense of compacting what you've done in workout and translating that into the swim meet.
Well, it's funny, right? I always say, like, if you can be good for 2.5 hours, then you pretty darn well.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can be good for 4.5 minutes, right?
And we have a joke, kind of, with me at least. A few guys on the team, when I made Worlds in 2017 for the first time, Peter and Rob actually, and another guy on our team, were just like, all you have to do is don't suck for 4 minutes and 17 seconds, point whatever. And so whatever, I did the race, and I was honestly thinking of, okay, don't suck for 4 minutes. That's easy. How hard can that really be? And that's stuck with me. So, we say that all the time now. It's just like, it's 4 minutes. Just don't do bad,
I like that. I like that a lot. Just don't suck for 4 minutes and 17 seconds. How hard could that be?
It's true. Like, how hard can it really be?
So I want to tell. So I want to get. I have a question for you, but I want to tell you a little story first. So Kevin, I found when I was with him in Junior Pan Packs, he just, like, the more I talked to him, the more I wanted to talk to him. And I know that some people gave him a bit of a reputation of being a bit unapproachable, or he doesn't really talk much, or this and that. But we just chatted like crazy. And I remember talking a little bit with him about how he got into his coaching career. And I said, well, how did you get into coaching? Like, how did it all start? He said, well, I was 18 and I told my dad, I think I want to give this professional coaching thing a go. And I said, yeah, well, what did your dad say? He's like, it was really short and simple. He's like, well, if you're any good at it, it's going to happen quickly. And if it doesn't happen quickly, you got yourself your answer.
Yeah.
Right. And then here he was. He coached for the rest of his life, and he was really good at it. And it happened right away. But it's just those little stories that it was that simple for him. Like, do the work. You're either going to have the success or you're not, and accept where you are at the end of that. But don't let what I got from him is don't let a lack of effort or a lack of ability to put the work forward be the thing that holds you back.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's one little story. I've got a few other ones. I mean, I know that this is another one that I love as well, because after the 2012 Olympics, he came back and he did this little presentation at a conference in BC. We did our BC conference. And usually it's in Whistler and it's packed, right? And this one was just in Vancouver, so there was like 13 people in the room. And he just did a little talk, and it sparked something in the fall of 2012, so 2012, 2013, about what he did to prep Brittany. I think it was Brittany for the Olympics in 2012. I'm getting all my years mixed up. But just a little thing about tapering. It was really nice to go back to him afterwards and say, like, you know what, thank you so much. You sparked an idea. And since that talk and him sparking that idea, I've not had a group of athletes not prepped and ready to go for a major taper meet since. And it was just the way he could simplify things. And I thought that was really cool. So there's just a couple of Kevin stories. And I'm just wondering, for you, do you have a favorite Kevin story that's swimming related? Maybe a favorite Kevin story that's something that is outside of the world of swimming, but just something that you're fond and you remember that you feel like sharing.
Let's see. Favorite Kevin story. There's so many where, you know, you're on training camp and you're dead from 10 days of doubles, and he would say something funny or you know, actually, okay, so it's not a specific story, but like I said, he kept a record of everything. So he would, and it was like always the best part of practice when between sets, you would come out of the water. You had to do it was called an athletic get out, where you got out of the water, not on your knee. You have to step out with your foot. It was like a little bit harder. For some reason, we had to do it. And you weren't getting out by the ladder. So anyways, we'd get out and we'd sit on the bulkhead and he'd explain the next set. And then going into like the main set or something or whatever it was, he would go off on a tangent of, you know, this person did this at this time. And not to say that, you know, you should be doing this, but this is what's possible. And he'd name, you know, an Olympian or somebody who you knew, right? And we would be sitting there for 20 minutes. And it's just like, yes, I'm missing 20 minutes of this practice, but he would be going on and on and on about, you know, this is what we need to do. This is where we need to go. This is how we're going to do it. And he had a timeline, and on the whiteboard, it was his whiteboard. No coach could touch it. And he, in the corner, it would be, you know, 5 weeks till this meet, 7 weeks till all the way to trials, all the way to whatever major competition it was. And along the way, we would knock off the weeks. And so he would just go on tangents about what we need, how we need to prepare, what we can do. And, you know, it's not a specific story, but I always love those moments because you would think you're getting out of 15 minutes of workout, but he had planned it ahead of time.
Yeah.
And then somehow we'd finish the 8K in an hour and 40 minutes. And it was like, oh man, that sucks. But you know, I always liked it. And at first I didn't really understand why we needed to do it. And he did it pretty often. But later on, when I came back from university and I kind of saw everybody in the same boat that I was when I was 14, you know, you're kind of just sitting there like, oh my God, like, here we go. Another story. But like, you start to appreciate it. And it's stuff that, because he was around for so long, he has those stories to tell, and not everybody gets to tell things like that. And so later on, kind of when I left university is kind of where we built more of that bond where, you know, I could talk to you for an hour and not get bored of the conversation. And maybe that's a little bit of growing and understanding where I am in the sport. But I think he did that with a lot of athletes where when you're swimming with him as an age group athlete, he knows what to do, just kind of trust him. And then when you go off to school and you come back and you've kind of seen the other side, per se, and you can have that kind of conversation. And there was a lot of times this year and last year where I would come back and, you know, there's an activation program that we do here in Calgary. And we never really did a big activation with Etobicoke, but I would come back and do that same activation that I've been doing for a couple of years. And he would always be like, oh, you're getting old now. You really got to limber up the muscles and you got to do all this stuff. You can't do the 2 minutes of arm swings that we always do. But and really hold that conversation. It was, I really had a great experience with him, and especially in the last couple of years when, I got to talk to him more and more. It was really great.
It sounds a lot like Kevin had this really great ability that I think the great coaches have this where they coach you and you come up as a youngster and they really have to guide you because you're young and you don't really know what you're doing. And then you get older, then the working relationship becomes close to a partnership. And then you move on and you're swimming at the high levels and then become a supportive friendship and mentor. Like they're there for you in a different capacity. But what he does really well is he kind of morphs and is what you need him to be that support system for you. Right.
Yeah.
He was excellent at that.
Exactly. And there was, when I was younger, I always disliked when, people from university would come home and train with us during Christmas, and they would get out after 5K or 6K. And that's like, well, I'm older. I don't need to be doing 8, 9, 10K. And it always really rubbed me the wrong way because, I always thought you're going to come swim with us. Obviously, we're looking up to you. Like, you can probably do the workout, just do it with us. And so when I made it a point, when I went to university, I came back, I would do the 10K workout on a Saturday or the 11K. It really, I made it a point that if I came back, I was going to do the set and no kids were going to beat me. Just because, maybe I wasn't a role model or maybe I wasn't, but I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really made it that point where, I'm going to do well. I'm only here for 3, 4, 5 days. Like how hard can it be to do well over that short period of time? And also to add to that point is I didn't want to come back and really let Kevin down. I know he kept the record, and I know that he would tell, because I went through it, he would tell kids what, I went on some of the sets or what other people went. And I don't want to come back and be like, yeah, that was me at 16. I don't do that stuff anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I can do that stuff and I will do that stuff. And I'll show you that just because you're a little bit older doesn't mean that you don't need to do it. And so I didn't want to let him down, right? I wanted to come into workout and do well. And actually a good story is recently this year for Christmas, we went back and we always did a Monday morning kick set. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how long we're going, but if you're willing to.
Oh, dude, we got all the time in the world. I love this. I'm nerding out right now. I love hearing this stuff.
So, I would always text Kevin before I went home, and I'd be like, hey, I'm going to be here for a couple of days. It's cool if I come to practice, blah, blah. So me and a buddy who he's in his second year now. So Richie Stokes, we were both going back, and we had both told Kevin, hey, we're going to be there Monday morning, just so you know, right? First workout back. And I mean, I just know when I texted Kevin, he had a practice and he erased the whole thing and was like, these guys are coming. We're going to make it so hard. It's going to be so fun. And we did this it was like a 5K kick swim set. And nobody made the pace time except for me and Richie and a few other people. But everybody was just swimming for 2 hours. And it was really hard set. And we finished the workout, and I was talking to him after practice for a little bit, and everyone was gone. And he was like, oh yeah, when you texted me, I erased everything. I made the pace time super hard just to see who could make it and who would be willing to get in the set with you and try and finish it. And it was just such a typical Kevin thing where the practice is impossible, but see if you can finish it. It was just so funny.
It's like his way of having fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I love what you said about coming back and setting an example, because I agree. Like, whether or not you notice it or don't, you are a role model. You are an example for those younger swimmers. And I think we agree on that statement you made about I hate when people come back and say, oh, I'm older now, I can't do this work.
Yeah.
I've given a hard time. What's that? Sorry?
That always bothered me.
Oh, it drives me nuts. Or the term that I hate is, I can't come back and do these age group sets.
Yeah.
And I've had a few guys actually. I've kind of nipped Rob on that one once. He came back and I said, Rob, look around you. I said, you're in a lane right now with James and Tim, and these they're all your age, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And also, I said, you're gonna go back and, I mean, come on, they're like 15, 16. Like, how are you gonna let somebody beat you? Come on.
Well, that's it.
Right.
See, I I have a bit of a joke for my swimmers because the way we're set up in North Van is that we always get about 4 lanes, maybe 5, but they always have lanes open for the public, right?
Mm.
And then I said, well, guys, if this is too hard, like there's a lane over there with a staircase in it that you can swim in, right?
Yeah.
And it's, you got the old ladies doing their water running and stuff like that. So I always give them a hard time.
Yeah.
No, I really appreciate you sharing your stories at Kevin and kind of thinking back to your time at Etobicoke because I think it's important. Yeah, I think it's nice to talk about it. And he really was a phenomenal guy who had a big impact on so many people's swimming careers. So I do appreciate you sharing that. I do want to kind of segue into something now. Just if you can just touch on, when you made the decision to move on to university, did Kevin or any of the coaches help you with that decision, or what was the process like for you? Was it pretty locked into Calgary? Were you looking at other schools? Were you looking stateside? Like how was that process for you when having to choose university?
So let's see. It might have been a year and a half before I really had to go into university. I didn't have the greatest year, and obviously, when looking at schools in the U.S., they kind of look at grade 11. Well, they look at grade 11 while you're in grade 12. And that wasn't the best year for me. Even it might have been grade 10. And so, I was just looking at, schools in the U.S., schools in Canada. What are my options here? Where are some great coaches? And more importantly, as I mentioned earlier, is that I wanted to have a good friend group. I didn't want to go somewhere and not like the people I was around because I was going to be around them for 25 hours of the week. And probably live with some of them at some point. So I didn't want to go somewhere and just not get along with people. And so it was that was a very big motivating factor. Another one was when I was going into school, 2012 had just finished. So the Olympics had just finished in 2012. And I was looking at who was on that team. And I don't want to misspeak, but I think majority, if not everybody who was on the Canadian national team didn't go to a U.S. university.
At that time, I think you're right. There might have been one or two.
Might have been.
But, yeah.
And so it kind of dawned on me. And obviously, Brittany was on that team, and she was in grade 12 going to a university in the States. But she wasn't there yet. And I didn't know how she was going to perform. Obviously, it turned out well for her. But so that was one of the things was like, if I'm going to the U.S., they have a different system. I'm going to have to do the NC2As if I make them right before trials. And for me, trials would be my most important thing. I want to be on the national team, right? And so it didn't knock U.S. schools out. It was just if a really good one reached out, obviously I was going to weigh my options. But my goal was to make the Olympics, and if nobody or a couple people were not on a U.S. team, then why would I kind of take that path? And that was just kind of a thought that I had. As for any coaches or anything that kind of guided me, Kevin knew Mike, and I guess he knew a lot of programs in the country, but I had just mentioned where I was going on a trip because I'd be gone for a few days. And so, I mentioned I was going to visit UBC and in Calgary. And so he would just say, Mike is a great guy. And they had that kind of relationship. And even when I got to Calgary, Mike knew a lot about Kevin. And so there was obviously that little, there was a common ground there where they knew about each other. And Mike knew what kind of training I was doing. And vice versa, right? So they didn't necessarily say, that's a good school to go to or that would be a good fit for you. It was more so, oh, I know him. That'd be pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
And then it was kind of my decision. So I don't think he wanted to kind of force anything on me or kind of lead me anywhere, but it was definitely a positive that they knew each other and they knew the programs. And then again, there was a few people from Etobicoke that went to Calgary and were still doing well. So that was also a big thumbs up for me.
Absolutely. Well, and I think just that familiarity and connection is a big piece, right? So then you chose Calgary, and clearly it's been a really good decision, because as I named all these teams that you took part in, right? I think your first year in Calgary, you got to go to junior, was it junior Pan Packs or junior Worlds?
Yeah, junior Pan Packs.
Junior Pan Packs. And then from there, you went right into like FISUs the next year, even Olympic trials, where I think you made the podium, but you didn't make the Olympic team in 2016, right? So you got close, you just missed it, but you got to go to the short course World Championships. I think they were in December after the Olympics. But you kind of had this steady run of teams. And then from there, I think 17, 18, 19, you're national champion 400 IM, you're going to the World Championships, Pan Packs, Commonwealth Games, all those things. So going through that process and what the run you've been on with Calgary, and obviously I've seen a lot of you now, I'm in BC, so I see a lot of you at Pro Series meets or Zajac or international stuff. But the one thing that I would say I always notice is anytime I see you, whether it be on film or pictures from national teams or see you on pool deck, is you've always got a smile on your face. You're always kind of cracking jokes. You're with your teammates or with other competitors, and you're always just seem to be enjoying the moment. So I was wondering if you can tell me, being a national team member for this long and all these trips and experiences, like, what is that like for you? What do you take away, or how do you enjoy that process of traveling around, wearing the maple leaf, and being with all these friends and teammates from not just in the country, but around the world now?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it was very difficult. So my personality naturally is somebody who likes to joke around, and that's kind of why I liked Calgary, because the first time I met Mike, I'm pretty sure he made a joke or something, and I was like, oh, I can probably connect with this. But so my natural personality in practice too is to joke around and get through things with laughter and with fun. And so when I made Worlds in 2017 for the first time, it was all new to me, where you're on a senior national team. I had been on other teams before, but the senior national team is very different. There's more expectation, just to throw it out there. And so, and you're racing some of the best people in the world, or the best people in the world. So it's a very different level of competition. And so leading up to it, we had a staging in, where was it? Italy. In Italy, and I wasn't enjoying the process of being there and getting ready for the meet. I was kind of in my head, kind of thinking about how can I do the best that I can, but a little bit too much, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and not even a little bit, like a lot too much. And so I'm getting ready. I'm doing the taper and stuff, and it's with a coach that I had never swam before with, which honestly isn't a big deal for me. I enjoy that, but I think I kind of let that get to me, and then going. I remember, so vividly walking out. They kind of call you out for the prelim. It's like a prelim at a World Championships is a final at any Canadian meet. And so I'm in lane 8, and Hagino's in my heat, and I think it was Jay Litherland, and just some of the best 4IMers in the world. And I remember walking out, I got called out first. I was in lane 8, and I was really confident. And then every time they called somebody, I'd get less confident and be like, what's going on? And then they announced Hagino, and like the crowd erupted. It was like, I don't know, 10,000, 15,000 people just like cheered. And I was like, why am I even in this heat? Before the race even started, right? And so I didn't really have I had fun, obviously, with the team, but it wasn't the same as what I'm used to. And I really had to figure out, how do I have fun and how do I joke around on a national team and with coaches that I don't really know and people that I don't really swim with all the time. And I think because I've been on it a few years now, that I know them a little bit more personally, and I kind of know where I can joke and where it's not acceptable, and what things I can say to some people and what things I can't, right? But that helps me. That really helps me, where I can have fun. I need to have fun in a practice, especially in a very stressful situation. Cracking jokes is kind of my release from it. And I mean, you can ask, I'm sure with people who swim the 4IM or any race that I do in the ready room, it's kind of like, let's keep it as light as possible, because obviously we're all stressed. So let's just have fun. And anybody will tell you that. And so anyways, I had to learn how to be able to do that at the highest level. And it kind of took me not doing well at 2017 Worlds, and then, going into Commonwealth Games, I did really well in the prelim. I was going in third or fourth into the final, and then I got really nervous again and didn't perform that well at night. And so my point being is that it took me some time to figure out how I can really be myself on that scale, which is joking around and having fun. And I think when I take things too seriously, it goes south pretty quickly. And as it tends to be with a lot of people, especially, my friends here who, we joke around all the time. So it really strikes me as odd when we're joking around, but then when you go to do your best event, it's a totally different vibe, where it's something that you're not necessarily used to all the time, which can be good. But just from my experience, more often than not, it kind of derails your race, and you kind of just want to be on a steady emotional level, right? But yeah, again, if you look at photos, I'll be laughing and joking around, and videos and things like that. But it took a long time for me to get to that point and realize that everybody here is the same. We're all equal, regardless of if you're getting the medals at the Olympics or at Worlds or anything like that. We're all one team, and we're all Team Canada. So, let's all have fun while we're here, and honestly enjoy that process, because 2017 again was fun, but I wasn't enjoying it as much as I would have liked to. And so I made the point of, if I ever make a national team again, I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm going to really be in the moment. And I'm not going to let this get to me anymore, because I want to do well. And if I let it get to me, I'm not going to do well. So it just seems like a simple fix to cut not doing well out, or not enjoying the process out. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you look at it, like 2017, you got your starting point on the senior team. 2018, you had the Commonwealth Games. Then you had the Pan Pacs. And then you fast forward to last year, 2019, you went back to the World Championships. And it's your second run. It's 2 years later. You've got that senior experience. And if you can compare the two experiences for how much you enjoyed it, because you swam well at Worlds, right?
Yeah.
And to compare those experiences, did you feel going in and having that experience was crucial to let you kind of figure out how to be serious, be focused? I want to do well, but I got to stay loose, because if I'm loose, then I'll be my best, right? And did a lot of those meets leading into 2019 help you prepare so you can kind of be the person you want to be at that meet?
Yeah, for sure. There was a lot of factors that went into it. One of them was being on the national team ahead of time. And there's so much protocol when you go to a meet like that. There's multiple ready rooms that you have to be in a certain amount of time before the race that maybe you're not used to. If you're just at some random meet, you can get out 10 minutes before your race and it's fine. You can't do that. Also, when I showed up in 2017, I didn't realize there was going to be 100 people in my lane. I was thinking, this is World Championships. They're going to make this as good as possible. How is it going to be, again, like, I hate the saying, but how is it going to be like an age group meet where there's hundreds of people in my lane? How am I supposed to warm up? And that was kind of a shock. And then, the pit area where, it's only our section, where nobody else really talks to you and it's really just yourself. That was new to me too, because I talked to everybody on the pool deck. I just like to chat and get, the fact that I'm about to race a 400 IM or whatever it is out of my head. I don't want that in my head. And so everything was new. So having the opportunity to be on national teams, I kind of learned the process that I need to deal with. And then showing up in 2019, I was comfortable. And I think that's the most important thing, is being comfortable. I'll tell you another thing that was really, I think was really important was, in the last couple of years, I had the chance to go swim with another program, like University of Florida, the Gators.
Okay.
And so I got to go down there and swim with them for, I've been there for 4 or 5 weeks now across the 2 years. But one of the guys that swims there, I did a lot of the same workouts. He's a 400 IMer, so we did the same thing while I was down there. And he was in my heat in 2019 right next to me. And so that was also another thing to stay comfortable, is I know who this person is. I know at least one person in this heat and how they swim. I know how good they are. I know how they train. And Like it's just a comfortability factor. And so I think that had a major role to play with. Now, I don't think that's necessarily the best thing, because I think you should be able to race anybody, not let kind of their race strategy get into your own race strategy. But on a comfortability factor, it really helped. So kind of that experience before, and then just kind of knowing somebody in the race. And honestly, in 2019, I did my warm up, and I got out, like, you're supposed to be in ready rooms like 25 minutes ahead of time, and I got out of the warm up pool 15 minutes before my race. And so I was like really late. And I kind of just put on any suit that I had. Obviously it was a new one, but I didn't choose like, oh, I want this one, just grabbed my stuff, and I like ran with Jan, the person who brings you over, to the ready room, and I already missed one, and I was like the next heat. And so I didn't have everything in my head going like, okay, this is what I need to do. It kind of just flowed. I kind of just did what I had trained. And again, it was way more comfortable than a lot of the forwarded IM situations that I've been in.
Do you find sometimes you just like, you kind of made me think of things that I want to ask. And what you just said is, like, do you find sometimes you have better races when you don't have time to think or plan about your race, and you just let your instincts take over? Because I've always been of the belief, when your instincts take over and you're racing on instinct and trusting your training and what you've always done, it's when the magic comes out a little bit.
Yep, for sure. I think, and again, it kind of goes back to training with Etobicoke, but we used to do multiple races in a session. And I developed the ability to, regardless of how tired I am, I'm going to do well in the next race. And so we have a meet every year at UBC where in one session I'm doing it. The order goes 4 IM, 4 free, 2 breast. And it's a heavy session. Those are 3 of my best events, and they're long and they're really hard. But the first year that I went, I did really well in all of them. And I kind of held that expectation. And what dawned on me is, and I'll give you a story from this year too, but what dawned on me is I only have, let's say, 25 minutes between my 4 AM and 4 free at that meet. All I'm thinking about is, can I breathe in the warm down pool? And can I get rid of all this lactic acid? Like, can I just calm my nerves down and get back to a normal state? And then I'm literally coming out of the pool, running to behind the blocks, and then swimming the 4 free. And then same thing between 4 free, 2 breast. And so, that's kind of been the routine that I got used to. And it kind of points out that, if I'm not thinking about it, I can do really well. Overthinking will kill a lot of what you want to do, right? And so that's kind of a key piece. And I'll give you a story from this year. We went to that same meet. I had the same schedule, 4 AM, 4 free, 2 breast. And, we're doing the morning, and Mike had mentioned, I think I want you to swim a really, really good 4 AM tonight. Okay, so we're in the prelim. So he's like, let's scratch the 4 free. I don't want you to do it. I know we always do it, but I want you to swim a 4 AM. And he gave me a time that he wanted me to try and go. And it's the first 4 AM I do in the season. It's kind of like, it can be good, but I'm kind of just ironing out the kinks still. Anyways, so he gave me a time, and I'm going into the final at night thinking about this time and how do I get to those splits and whatever. And I don't hit it. I do actually really bad. And it's that overthinking aspect where it's like, I wanted to do really well. And you put a time in my head, and that's all I'm thinking about. But now that's what I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about what I actually need to do in the race at a specific moment. It's more so thinking about outcome rather than process. And when you tend to do that, it kind of shifts everything. And even in that situation, at a certain point in the race, if I'm going the time that I want to go, I need to be ahead of certain people. And then you start looking at other people in the race, and it's like, why am I doing that? That has nothing to do with me. And so that was a really big lesson that I'm still learning. And I think Mike too.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that, because it's like, yeah, you might have certain benchmarks based on the people around you, but what if they're swimming really slow?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you know what I mean? Because you have no idea how fast you're going. Plus, you haven't trained to swim their race plan,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So it's always
It
stuff
makes
like that.
no sense to look at other people while you're racing.
It
Like,
doesn't, right?
it's a small benchmark, but at the end of the day, like, you want to know how you feel at a certain moment in the race,
Mm-hmm.
and build off that, right?
I've always said that every athlete I've coached, when they swim their race plan, they do it the last 50 of the race, and I already know how the race is going to end, right?
Yeah.
Because they've swum the way they train, and I was like, okay, this last 50 is going to be awesome, guys. I can sit back and relax, and it's not nerve wracking. So I just got one more thing I want to touch on with you, and that's obviously it's this year, right? With the Olympics, and I mean, I'm just going to assume that you've been training, you're ready to go, and you were excited for it. And it got pulled out from under us rather abruptly right beforehand, right? So how are you dealing with the postponement? It was a cancellation, but now the postponement of trials in the Olympics for another year. And how are you feeling with that, knowing that you were in great position to go and kind of hit that last check mark of teams that you haven't been on yet? And then how does it feel knowing that now it's a year down the road, and how are you adapting or adjusting to changing the timeline?
Yeah, there's two sides to it. I think, well, obviously, I wanted to build off the momentum of being on national teams in consecutive years. I think momentum is a very important thing. And so, 2017, two in 2018, and then 2019, and I wanted to top it off with 2020, right? And so, in the back of my mind all year, it's been, and we kind of had this saying going, was, this better be worth it, was the thing that I would say in the weight room at, like, all the time, would this better be worth it? And then somebody would say, well, let's make it worth it, right? And so, like, it's just something small, but it kind of gets you through hard things. And so there's that aspect where I wanted to build off the momentum. I wanted to do, and I knew I can do really well. I've been training well all year, and it's unfortunate that a week and a couple of days before I was racing day one, it got canceled. But and I had a lot of people call me and say, I'm so sorry to hear that they canceled trials, and all this stuff. And to be honest, I was a little bit disappointed. We found out on a Friday night. I was a little bit disappointed for 10, 15 minutes. I was like, well, that sucks. And initial reaction is, well, I just wasted this year. But as soon as that moment passes, and I have a very strict rule on being disappointed. I give myself a time period, and I move forward. I move on. So as soon as that moment passes, it's you realize it's not a waste of the year. I have the opportunity to get that much better in another year. So if I was a little bit nervous about hitting the FINA A time now, I'm going to be way less nervous next year because I'm going to have a whole another year under my belt. And so it just gives me that opportunity to get better. And I started working on a lot of little things this year that got better but weren't perfect. And now I get a whole nother year to work on those and perfect those, because those will make a big difference in the race, even though they're very minor things. And so initial reaction is kind of disappointment, but at the end of the day, when I told these people who are calling me, is I there's nothing I can do about it. The only thing that I can do, and we touch on this on the national team, is control what you can control, and that's it. And so what I can control is staying fit over the summer while I'm out of the pool, mentally being motivated to still swim, because I didn't know if I was going to swim if I made the Olympic team or not next year, and I might have just called it. But being motivated to go another 8, 9, 12 months, and then just when I get the opportunity to get back in the water, make the best of it. It's something where right now is the best time of my life. I get to travel, I get to do something that I love, and I get to hang around people that I thoroughly enjoy every day. And so what's better than doing that? After this, I'm gonna have to work, and how fun is work, right? So I like the fact that I'm in a position where I can make an Olympic team. First off, that's a great position to be in. And it's just really about capitalizing on it and taking advantage of that opportunity and not getting down and not getting upset about, what you can't control and just being ready. I think it's important to be ready at any moment. And that's kind of how I live by is, honestly, they could have made it in May, they could have made it in June, and we could have had a month off and I would have still been mentally prepared. And that would have fueled my confidence to be physically prepared. Whether I was or not, I think it would have went fine. And so now, obviously, a year later, it's that much better,
Well, there's an athlete that I work with, and I kind of really enjoyed what he said about it. He's like, it sucks, it's disappointing, but all it really is just changing the date in which I need to put on my performance. Exactly. It's just a date change. That's it. And I really love that attitude. So your plan then moving forward, is it you're going to stay in Calgary and train and get ready for 2021 then, right?
Yep. Yeah, I'm going to be here for the year. I'm going to, again, like I mentioned, going down to Florida a few times, and I really like their program down there. So, when our team goes to Can West and CIs, there's kind of a 2-week block where they're the focus. The university is the focus, and Mike is focused on those guys. So I'm obviously not in that team. So I like to go down and keep that training going, and they do a good job down there. So I want to still do that. I want to still hit all the pro meets and kind of get my experience still up there, even though I have some. It never hurts to gain more, and just build off what we've been doing for the last couple of years.
Thing I keep thinking as well, man, is the fact that the Olympics are in 2021, it might affect that decision of maybe 2024 isn't all that far away now, right?
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. I mean, I'm going one step at a time. I don't want to think too far in the future, but right now it's focused on 2021 and doing the best that I can, and then we'll make the decision when we get there.
We'll leave that to that. That decision will be for future Tristan to decide, right?
For sure.
Excellent. Okay, man, I really appreciate doing this. I have to ask this of everyone I talk to because I always think it's a fun little thing at the end. And it's just a really simple thing. And it's the same question I've asked everybody. If you had to go back in time and talk to yourself at any particular age, 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever age, or just talk to a young swimmer now, and you can give one or two little pieces of advice of things that you maybe wish somebody like you had said to you back at that age, what might that be?
That's easy for me because I've thought about that a lot when I've told younger swimmers this, whether it's, going back and talking to Etobicoke at their banquet or whatever it is, right? So for me, I saw this video a couple years back of Will Smith talking about fear and just fear of succeeding and fear of failure. And how honestly just fear itself is just the killer of dreams. It really is. It's, if you're scared of something, especially in swimming, if you're scared of doing the race or not being prepared or whatever it is, chances are it's not going to go that well. And I learned that the hard way in 2017 at Worlds, and I was really scared to be there. And so if I can go back and tell a younger version of myself or any kids who are, kind of coming up in the sport, is that find a way to get over that fear and kind of, I wouldn't say avoid it, but use it as a motivating factor. The best things in life, I think, are on the other side of that wall of fear, right? Like in that video where Will Smith talks about him going skydiving, he's standing on the edge of a plane, and the only thing he can think about is, I'm going to die. There's a fear of me dying. And as soon as he gets, I guess, pushed off the plane, it's complete joy and utter bliss, right? And it's just that thin barrier of fear and joy that separates the two. It's not a big thing. And so really just, I guess, enjoy the process that you're going through, and then don't be fearful of anything. You have the ability to do anything that you set your mind to, and sometimes it takes longer for some people than others, but you will figure it out if you put in the work. And I mean, just enjoy going through the process and break those fear barriers down as best as possible.
I think that's awesome. I think it's the perfect analogy too. It's like take a leap of faith, right? Like don't let fear hold you back.
Exactly.
That's excellent advice. And dude, the time kind of flew by. I know we've been going for a while. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun talking to you. I want to wish you all the health and safety for you and your family, and best of luck in your training. And I'm looking forward to seeing your race in 2021. And I want to see that maple leaf on your cap once again.
Thank you. And you too. I hope the family's doing well. And again, thank you for the opportunity. I know we went a little bit long, but I really enjoy doing stuff like this. And obviously, like I know you, and I enjoy talking to you. So again, not a problem. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, man. Well, you take care. You stay safe, and we'll talk to you again hopefully soon on a pool deck.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Take care.
See ya.